Yo, people, what it do? Welcome back to another live stream. This is a bit different today. We doing an emergency live stream, man. Xavi came out and he had a lot of things to say, and I thought about just doing a video on this, but if I can catch some of y'all being up, I would love to get your guys' reaction as I'm going along with this. This might be something that I do more on the regular. It might not be. We're going to see how it goes in general. But yeah, man. I don't know if y'all been on social media or what, but Xavi came out. He had a lot of things to say. The timing of it makes it a bit suspicious, if you ask me, because of the fact he's trying to diminish John Laporta, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. I don't know if y'all have already read it. We're going to go over it on a live stream. But if you have read it already, then you understand what I'm talking about. If you haven't, don't worry. We're going to get into it because I went to the website that did the whole interview with him and they posted it. If you want to watch the video before watching the stream, by all means, go ahead. I don't understand Spanish. I understand a little bit of it, but not to the gist of being able to watch the video and without it being translated and to be able to understand in context fully what he means. But let me get some things here. Let me just post this real quick, man, before I get on. Like I said, man, this is something I normally don't do. Going live this late in the day. It's 9 p.m. where I'm at. But like I said, man, I'm sure most of you guys is going to catch this. It's going to be probably after the fact, which is fine. Like I said, this is something that I will plan on doing more often as we move forward. But nonetheless, let's skip the yapping. Let me go ahead and get this interview pulled up because, like I said, man, it's a long, lengthy interview, and he had a lot of things to say. So let's get that pulled up here. So web browsing. Okay. And hopefully this looks right on the stream. If it don't, just let me know, man. But I think it should look straight. So, obviously, election time is going on in Barcelona. I believe we are a week away from figuring out who's about to be Barcelona's new president. I'm just gonna go ahead and let y'all know now. I have no problem with Joan Laporta continuing on as Barcelona president. I believe since he's been here, we've always gone in an upwards like trajectory. But the thing is, he's a lawyer. He is a president. He knows how to swindle. He knows how to lie, and he has hurt some people, Xavi included, in the midst of being a politician. And some people would never forgive him for that. And so, while I understand their point, as a Barcelona fan who hasn't been offended by anything Joan Laporta said directly to me, because obviously who am I? But because they're so hurt about it, and these are club legends, some people are going to feel some type of way. And that's why, as a socio and Xavi, he's now going with, I believe his name, Victor Font, who, look, I've seen his campaign and how he's running. I don't like his tactics. Before we get into his interview, what Xavi had to say, the timing of this is only to smear Jean Laporta and his presidential campaign. But like the guy that he's running against, Font, he hasn't said anything as a fan that would make me confident, other than things that we can't validate until we know for sure he's in the office. You know, he's making promises of we can sign Holland. We're not going to be corrupt. We're going to be open and honest. We're going to get Messi back. We're going to get Xavi back. You know, it kind of gives me FC Amigos kind of vibes. Honestly, I'm gonna be real, because it seems like they just all want to get the old gang back when I hear Font. But I don't hear anything moving forward in the future that will help solidify the club, continue to grow the club, and be competitive on all fronts for the foreseeable future. So I understand Xavi's point of view, and like I said, we're gonna get this started, but I had to get that off because I'm just like what Xavi had to say in this interview. For those who haven't seen it already, I'm just like, we understand why you're doing it, and we understand why you feel some type of way, in the timing of it. But bro, like, let's be real. Laporta is a much better presidential candidate for Barcelona, especially at this time, than it would be with Font. And I don't know if he can't convince Xavi to come back. What's his backup plan? I haven't heard anything about it. What is he going to try to convince Pep to come back? Like, what are we really doing here with Victor Font? But anyway, man, look, I'm done running my mouth. Let's get this started, man. So look, it says after nearly 2 years of silence, Xavi Hernandez, legendary FC Barcelona player and the precursor to Hansi Flick to the Barca bench, has decided to speak out. In his words, quote, tell the truth. After more than 40 minutes of interview, he confesses of feeling liberated. It is likely that this interview will be talked about for years to come. So the interviewer asked him, why has he decided to speak out? Xavi, for several reasons. The main one is that I want to explain my side of the story. After leaving, I decided not to make any statements out of respect for Barca. People know how much I love the club, my whole family, and I are Barcelona fans. And should I do an instant reaction based on each question? I will, but I'm going to keep it short. It's interesting that now he decides to come out compared to saying something immediately after getting fired. Because if it's out of respect for Barcelona, how is still saying the things that you've been holding in, but saying it years later, not years later, about a year and a half later? Why saying it now? Why all of a sudden it won't hurt Barcelona? Or because you're saying this because you know the reaction most people are going to give you. Therefore, you can get the president that you prefer. Is that why you're saying that? Because if this is something that you decided to just now speak on, then I don't understand why. If this is something that you just now speak on, Yapper, man, what's good, bro? It's good to see from you, man. I sent you a message earlier, bro. It's good to hear from you, man. Hope all is well. But I don't know. It's just like he said, I decided not to make any statements out of respect for Barcelona. People know how much I love the club. But I'm just like, the statements you're making now compared to the statements that you're making today, it's not really much of a difference. Like, it's still going to have the same impact. It's just that the impact you think is going to favor you. I digress, though. So, but he said, this is why he decided to speak out. And he said, the interviewer, the story being told by the club is completely false, and I feel the need to explain myself. It's something I've been carrying inside me, and I need to clarify. That's what I was just talking about. Let's take it one step at a time. Do you like Hansi Flick's team? Xavi says, absolutely. It's dominant, attacking. We Barca fans enjoy it, and I'm happy because I think we laid a very good foundation for this project to continue. The backbone of the team is made up of Lamine, Pedri, Balde, Kubarsi, Fermin, people we put our faith in. It's one of the legacies I'm most proud of, even more than the 2 titles we won. And I will say this, no matter how you feel about Xavi, no matter how you feel about Hansi Flick, you have to give Xavi all the credit in the world for trusting a lot of the players that are essentially backbones. Like, where would this club be without Lamine, Pedri, and Kubarsi? Now, granted, Pedri is more of a Ronald Koeman sighting. Like, he obviously helped bring him along. That was before Xavi. But Balde, I believe he had his best season under Xavi. Xavi debuted Kubarsi and Lamine Yamal and Fermin, and he pushed for Fermin when I wasn't hearing anybody talking about Fermin Lopez. This is all due to Xavi. So no matter what people say about Hansi Flick and moving forward and the titles that he's won and will win with the club, you always have to make sure you give respect to Xavi first, because of the fact that he helped give these young players an opportunity where other coaches may not have done that. And who knows where the club would be if we never gave Lamine, Kubarsi, and Fermin opportunities. Pedri, like I said, he continued to develop under Xavi, and I'm pretty sure it helped Pedri's development due to the fact that his coach is Xavi. But that credit for Pedri goes to who put him on was Ronald Koeman. And Balde is kind of like a similar scenario. But you have to give credit to Xavi for that. So they asked him, what is his relationship with Flick? And he said, excellent. We message each other constantly. I always congratulate him on the team, and we talked about football. In fact, he once came over to my house because of a difficult situation, and that's very kind of him. So it is dope to see that Xavi's not on no hating shit. Really, that's just what, that's my reaction to it. He's not on no hating shit. He's constantly probably giving him suggestions of what Flick may ask him, or he just constantly just talking about football in general, like, damn, what a player Pedri is, or damn, it's crazy to see Lamine develop like the way he's been developing, whatever. But it's cool to see that though Xavi is frustrated with some part of the club, it's not all of the club, and not with the players or his replacement. He's basically directed his frustration with the president. So it's dope that, he kind of, because I didn't really expect that they would be consistently messaging each other. I'm pretty sure once they cleared the air about him replacing him and he went over to his house like he mentioned, after mentioning that, I'm pretty sure I just would assume they wouldn't be speaking to each other because it would kind of be awkward. But these are both very professional, mature men who've won a lot in their careers, one as a player and a manager as well, but obviously one with Hansi Flick in his managerial career. And so I think these are two men that are very comfortable in their position in life and their career. So there's nothing to be hostile and jealous of, though I'm pretty sure we would have seen that in other situations, maybe at other clubs. But here it seemed like it's genuine. So I do like that. I appreciate that. So they go on to say, after he explained his relationship with Hansi Flick, he said, can it be extended? Asking, like, can you extend the situation? What you mean he came over to your house because of a difficult situation? Can it be extended? And Xavi said he came to apologize when I asked him if the club had actually been talking to him while I was the manager. During those 2 or 3 weeks, when the club had already decided to let me go, but no one told me directly. He apologized, talking about Hansi Flick. We talked for over 2 hours. It was fantastic. The club told him not to say anything to me, and that's why he came to my house to apologize. He's a good guy, very honorable, and I'm glad he's doing well. So, very respectable from Hansi Flick there. Damn, you say you lost respect for him, bro? You said this is just to take away from Laporta. This is honestly bitch made shit, to be honest. Lost a little respect for Xavi. Bro, but this is the thing. I think Xavi did this just because one day he was eventually going to let this out. He was always going to have to say something about how he was treated. And you got to admit, from a fan's perspective, it looked like he was gone. And then Laporta publicly begged him to stay. And then he gets backdoored by saying, you know what, we really don't need you. But they didn't tell him that directly. They smeared his name in the papers. I remember seeing this shit and thinking it's kind of bogus that, they're doing that to him. But that's how Barcelona move. If they want you out, they go to the press. They go to them papers. And they start smearing your name. And they put pressure on you to kind of feel like I'm no longer wanted here. So I'm going to do my part and leave. And Xavi always had to feel some type of way. Obviously, Barcelona fan, club captain. He's won everything you can win. A World Cup winner. I mean, he's one of the more decorated players in all of the history of the sport. So he should deserve respect anywhere he goes, but especially at Barcelona. And I felt he had to get this off his chest because in his opinion, he wasn't shown that respect. And based on what we seen as fans from what was shared in the social media world and put on the papers, I have to admit he has every right to feel this type of way. And the timing of it is not on accident because he clearly wants Font to win the presidency race just off the strength that he don't want to see Laporta running and winning no more. You said that's the only thing I don't like that Barca did at the end of the day is because it's tough. Yeah, that's facts, bro. But in the middle of a presidential race where he's clearly backing another candidate, why couldn't he done that early? That's my stance. Look, I feel you. I feel you because that was my point that I made earlier. I was like, you said you didn't want to say this immediately because you didn't want to hurt the club. Yet you still said the same statements that you would want to say then. So whether you said it earlier or you say it today, it's going to have the same impact on the club. But the reason why you deliberately waited until now is because you're trying to get your pal Font as the next president, and it's everything happens for a reason, and this was very strategic from Xavi and his team to go ahead and do this now. So he goes on to say, after explaining, how he was and everything like that. So he says, does he talk to the players? I'm assuming they mean in Xavi. He was like, yes, I have a very good relationship with them. I naturally congratulate everyone we had, and that makes me proud. We were a family in the locker room, and I've always been upfront with the players. So standard stuff, but it's good to hear from him. And isn't he frustrated that he can't train them? No, quite the opposite. I'm very happy for him. We signed Rafinha, Christensen, Lewandowski, Kunde, all playing together with Jordi Cruyff and Matthew. Oh yeah, I forgot about Alemani. But he said now you see Fermin, Lamine, and for me it was already the best in the world. Rafinha, whom we changed the position so he can attack the space behind. Yeah, you got to give Xavi credit for that as well because he definitely used to put Rafinha on the left hand side, and Rafinha used to hate that shit. He used to also hate getting subbed off at the 60th minute, but Xavi laid the foundation for him to start playing out left. You got to give him credit on that front as well. And a interviewer asked him, "And you didn't fail?" He said, "Of course we made mistakes, and we've been very self-critical, both personally and then with the staff through meetings. To summarize briefly, I say that my expectations of the club decreased over time. Wow. When I arrived from Qatar in my first summer as a manager, I even told the president that if we didn't sign certain players, I wouldn't continue because we couldn't compete at the highest level. And he listened to me. We won La Liga. We were competitive against Real Madrid, Cruz, Modric, and others who had just won a Champions League. The following summer, those expectations dropped, and that's what I regret." Wow, okay. A lot to unpack there. First, I wonder why his expectations of the club decrease over time. Because he did get that crazy summer where we signed Christensen, Rafinha, Kunde, and Lewandowski. But that was obviously due to pulling the levers. But I'm pretty sure it was explained to Xavi, look, that was a one summer thing, and we're going to try to load up this summer. Because afterwards, we didn't have a summer like that. We still haven't had a summer like that. So Xavi has to understand in some aspect what the club were in financially, especially when Laporta came in, bro. Damn near over $1 billion in debt. We all have heard that. We've seen it. I was tired of hearing about it, but it was just a fact. Now the club is more than half removed that debt. But at the same time, it wasn't all resolved while handling the financial situation. And you only got that summer. I don't know if it was, yes, I'm pretty sure it had to do with you putting pressure on the president. Look, if we're going to compete, I'm going to need guys. And Laporta did his thing as a president by coming through and giving you those guys. We wouldn't have won La Liga. It was at 2022, 2023, right? We wouldn't have won La Liga, obviously, if it wasn't for that summer transfer window. But at the same time, it was unrealistic for Xavi to understand that we had to continue to go out there and spend that kind of money in order to be competitive. I think that's where him and Joan Laporta started bumping heads because of the fact when he hired Hansi didn't come in and with all the excuse, we got to spend money if we really want to compete. He came in, he was very grateful of the fact of the players that he had while he had La Masia. And he didn't make any excuses. He just got to going. And you have your preference on who's right, Xavi, or if it was Hansi Flick's preference of going about how to talk about the team and What's our chances of winning? I prefer how Hansi goes about it. And then if you got a complaint for real, do that on the back end. My thing that I didn't like with Xavi was he will say things like that publicly. We can't really complete. We can't really compete with the likes of Real Madrid or this team, the PSGs, the Bayerns, and the Arsenal. He's saying this in interviews and press conferences, and that can't do well for the players in the locker room. I'd rather you be delusional and we look back and be like, man, this team really don't have a chance of winning. Then the manager coming out and being like, yeah, no, well, unless we spend money, we're not really going to have a chance to win. And it's like, part of that can be true, but at the same time, it's like, bro, there's no academy better than Barcelona's academy in the world, in my opinion. Biased, yes, I'm a Barcelona fan, but I'm just being real. Like, you have to put on a facade. Play a charade or something. Like, don't go out there and just let everybody know about, yeah, we don't have no money, and because of that, we can't compete. And I think that's why, like I said, him and John Laporta were bumping heads. Just off the strength. It's like, whether that's true or not, come on, bro. Like, there's ways to go about it. So, he said he didn't continue that kind of pressure, and I believe even if he tried it, I don't think anything would have happened. And if anything, his tenure as Barcelona's manager would have been even shorter than what it ended up being if he would have went with his initial instinct by wanting to step away as soon as he realized my demand and expectations for the club has decreased, and we're not signing players like how we did my first year there, my first summer there, I should say. So he said, we won La Liga. We were competitive against Real Madrid with Cruz, Modric, and others who had just won the Champions League, which is true. You won La Liga over them. The following summer, those expectations dropped, and that's what I regret. Like I said, I don't believe he had really any control over that. Like, it was going to happen regardless, bro. I'm going to be real. So they asked him to go in further. In what sense? So he said Busquets was leaving. I asked them to sign Zubamendi, and they told me for financial reasons. Then Jordi Cruyff? I can't say that name. I know obviously Cruyff is like a legend, but it's Cruyff, right? Whatever. Then Jordi Cruyff left because of the contempt that they showed him. I mean, he's Cruyff's son. They who carried the banner of Cruyffism, I told them, what are you saying? We just won the league. A month and a half later, they let Mateo go. And at that point, I should have left too. And while we were in control, the team kept improving. But as soon as they started making the decisions, and not by chance, the team went down. But the relationship with President Laporta was always good. Yes, very good. In fact, I signed for Barca thanks to him. But he ended up letting me down, which is a big statement. And he asked him, because he dismissed me as a coach without telling me the truth. Influenced by someone I believe is above the president, Alejandro Echeverria. In other words, it was Alejandro who dismissed me as a coach. Now, this is interesting. I understand why he's upset and he feels like the relationship with Laporta is not good. As we talked about earlier, at the end of the day, you told me you wanted me to stay after I was announcing that I'm about to step away. You begged me to stay. I stayed, and then you were going to end up getting rid of me anyway, but you didn't have the balls to tell me that to my face. And the fact that you decided to go ahead and start looking for a new manager after just begging me to stay, we get eliminated by PSG in the Champions League. And now all of a sudden you're starting to make phone calls while smiling in my face, having me believe that I'm going to continue on as a manager, even though I wanted to step down. That don't make any sense from Laporta's point, but I understand why Xavi feels like our relationship is not good based on that, and I respect him for that. But him saying Alejandro Echeverria, I don't know who this guy is. This is the first time I've ever heard about him, and I hope that this isn't true. I hope that this is just Xavi upset about the ordeal, and he may have seen Alejandro talk to Laporta and give him some suggestions, and now he feels like Alejandro is really who made the decision to get rid of me as a coach. I hope, like I said, that's not the case. You said, and I totally agree with you, Xavi has every right to feel like this, but the timing it gives off is not the front bad. Yeah, that's true. That I didn't like either in Barcelona or Alemany. Barcelona should never. Yeah, that's and then the fact that he left and now we got to deal with him. Atletico Madrid. He just made a good signing with Lookman over the January transfer window. The way all of that went about was nasty work. I can't lie. Like that was some nasty work. Um, but let me go on because it says after he said Alejandro was the one who dismissed me as a coach, the interviewer pushed back and said it's hard to believe. But he said, but that's how Barca works. It's practically run by Alejandro Echeverria. He was someone who with whom I had a close, friendly relationship, and that's why his departure from Barca is perhaps the biggest disappointment. He completely let me down. He asked, what happened? In January of my last season as a coach, I told him that I wouldn't continue after June for the good of the club and for my own personal good. But from then on, the team kept winning, and for 2 or 3 months, until we lost in the Champions League to PSG and in La Liga to Real Madrid, they constantly told me I had to stay. They tried to convince me. I even had a face to face meeting with Alejandro because I know he's the one who makes all the decisions. This is crazy. And I asked him how he saw it. I said, quote, look, I have doubts because you're telling me to continue, but I'm not sure, unquote. He told me, yes, they were preparing for next year. They were planning. The president was clear about it. And that's why, like I said, if I'm Xavi, I get it. I get it. I don't understand going with Font because he's not really gonna. Yo, Marvel was good, bro. I don't understand going with Font. You can be like, I'm not with Laporta. I'm really not with any of these presidential candidates, to be honest with you. But I know for sure I'm not with Laporta. But I guess for Xavi's point of view, he probably couldn't say that. If you're going to say you're not with somebody, you have to pick. All right, well, if you're not for Laporta, you got to give us somebody you're going to go with. And he decided to partner with Font, which whatever. But like I said, I always will understand where Xavi comes from because I said that I was going to step down. We started winning games until we lost to PSG and Real Madrid. Everybody wanted me to stay. And then after that shit happened, everybody told me, and this is what he's about to get into. Everybody told me, yes, I'm still here, but then people behind the board started to switch. So he goes on to say, and then came the elimination against PSG. At that moment, Alejandro called me. I remember because I was coming down from school with the children, and he told me that we had to meet, that they had a board meeting, and most of them didn't see my continuation as clear. And Alejandro told me to come to the sports city, and there I told him that there was no problem, that I had already said that I was leaving, and I had no need to continue. Yeah, that's nasty work, man. I will say this: I've been a Barcelona fan since I started watching the sport, and that is now since 2010 is when I started watching the sport. So 16 years now, I've been watching the sport and I've been watching Barcelona. And one thing that I noticed that's very particular about Barcelona compared to really any other club is the way that they use the media to make things happen. But when they're confronted about it, they know how to put on, whoever the current president is, they know how to put on a front like everything is fine, everything is peachy. We love this coach. We love this player, ex-player. But behind the scenes, we seen it with Frankie De Jong. We seen it with Xavi when they decided that they didn't want Xavi anymore. We even seen it against Messi and his wages and how people had complained about that. They will use the media more than anything. And I realized, getting back to my point, it's so political with Barcelona. Sometimes it gets annoying. I'm just going to be honest. Like, I'm here for the football that's being played on the pitch, the players coming out of the academy, us trying to compete for trophies. That's what I'm here for, like most football fans are. But the the lies, the manipulism and all this other things that they do, it's just something that you become used to when you're supporting this team. But I noticed nobody else really moves like that. And it's so crazy because you really got to take everything that's being fed to you with a bit of grain of salt. It's up to you to make your own opinion and your own reaction to what's being fed to you. Because if you just sit there and listen to what they're throwing at you, it's all propaganda. Somebody wants you to know this information because it benefits them somewhere else. And you have to pay attention to that. And so when he got to the elimination, so at first it's like, yeah, everybody wanted you here. The board made the decision. But because of two results, and the biggest one being PSG in the Champions League, the board had another meeting and they don't see Xavi continue on. And I'm just like, what changed? Don't tell him. It's like they wanted him to stay only if they're able to dismiss him. When he was decided, I'm going to leave, but I'm going to leave on my merit, it's like they refused to let that happen. Y'all still knew when he made that decision, well, we still got a lot of games to play. We got PSG, we got Real Madrid, we got a La Liga race, and we got the rest of the Champions League to go. It can either go really good or really bad. So how about let's just not make a decision yet? Let's just sit back and let's just see what happens. But they decided to make a decision early because Xavi went ahead and already said, this is going to be my last year. And I think the players started responding to that by him coming out saying that. Therefore, the player performances started to get better. The team started to look better. We went on a run. And then the club prematurely went out there and was like, we want to keep you. Begged this man to stay. He finally was like, all right, I'm going to stay. The results kind of changed a little bit. And now they want to come out and they want to say, you know what, on second thought, we don't want to see you continue. And it's like, how? Like, what? You can't decide who's going to be your manager for the future based on one or two results. It was disappointing we lost to PSG, but we understand the context behind that. And you can't blame Xavi for that. You can't. So, like I said, man, I do get his frustration. I do. I understand it. It's just the fact that he's doing this now is only to benefit him and his agenda that he has, which is trying to get found as the next president. So he goes on to talk more. He says, the day of the sushi dinner, yes, at the president's house, there, Laporta, who later also didn't tell the truth, convinced me to continue. He said, and I quote, Xavi, I can't see the team without you. I can't see the new camp without you. I can't see the club's 125th anniversary without you as a coach. And since I still had the motivation and saw a great future for the team with the talented young players that are coming up, I felt I can do it. I only asked for one change in the squad. Somebody asked him, what was the problem? He said, a planning meeting arrived with my entire staff and with Raul Martinez and Julio Tuos, I guess is how you say his name, the new physical trainers that we had agreed with Alejandro and Deco would join. And that's what Alejandro started shouting and saying that the physical preparation was a disaster. It's interesting. You're going to let them, you agreed to hire these trainers. Was this over a duration of time that they figured out that, okay, the physical preparation was a disaster? I wonder what made him flip. And who the hell is Alejandro Echeverria? Like, who is this guy? I'm hearing his name a lot. He's friends with Xavi. He's close with Laporta. He's in the boardroom making decisions. Apparently he controls Deco. All these I'm hearing, and I've never even seen a photo of this guy. He said, and was it true? It was talked about in the media. I interrupted him and told him that that wasn't the case. There's data that shows that since 2003, no Barca team has outrun our league champions. That's actually a crazy stat. Since 2003, no Barca team has outrun our league champions. So basically over 20 years, he's saying that the 2023 squad was the most, the Barca team that outran every other Barca team. That's interesting. I don't know if I can off memory think of Xavi's teams and think like obviously when you watch a Hansi Flick team and they would have said that stat, I would have been like, I believe you. I can see it. All them games we were winning 1-0 when Ronald Araujo had a really good season, you would have told me that that team outran all the other Barcelona teams dating back to 2023. It would have shocked me. I wouldn't say it would have been completely unbelievable, but at the same time, I'd be like, damn, that's kind of surprising. I didn't, that's just me. I wouldn't expect that. He said we never lost due to physical limitations. That was the story they told to get rid of me as a coach. And one of those who contributed was Raul Martinez, another close friend who brought into Alejandro's story to get rid of me. I don't. That's that. I mean, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, though. They're gonna put out stories. You gave him the permission to hire these physical trainers. You don't want Xavi here anymore, so you start talking about how the guys that Xavi picked is not doing well physically preparing the players to play. Therefore, this is my one of my many reasons I want to get rid of Xavi. I know Xavi had to be sitting there thinking, how is like at this point y'all just trying to find anything to get rid of him. That's bogus. But now we got more names being brought up. Raul Martinez and Alejandro. Like, who is that? Did Echeverria fire him? At the moment, I asked him what his exact position was. Ooh. Ooh. See, that's how you fire back. You got all this power and you in these rooms and you got a lot to say so. Bravo, what's good, bro? Yeah, man. So Xavi came out. He had a lot of things to say. Obviously, for me, if you ask me, like the timing of it is the reason why he's doing this now. Is because he's trying to get fine. He's trying to damage Laporta's image. But like this right here is crazy. Because a man with ego who feels like he has a lot of power, if Xavi comes up to him and he says, I'm going to read this again. At that moment, I asked him what was his exact position was. Because Deco, the sporting director, and Bohan, his assistant, were present. He decided that I wouldn't be continuing, but instead of telling me that to my face and saying, look, you're out, 2 or 3 weeks went by. How does she experience them? Who is she? What are you talking about? They launched a media campaign against me. And what is worse and more disappointing is Alejandro dedicated himself to talking to footballers such as Sergio Roberto, Araujo, Pedri, and Rafinha, and told them that I wanted to sell them. That is nasty, bro. That's dirty. That's dirty. Instead of telling him, he said he decided then I wouldn't be continuing. But instead of saying it to his face, he let 2 or 3 weeks and went on by. But I think at that moment his ego got checked and he's like, I'm gonna get rid of this motherfucker. You gonna sit there and you gonna ask me what is my role in front of everybody in this room. Which is a valid question, to be fair. But his ego got hurt when he decided to, bring that up right there at that moment. So he looked at him and was like, you know what? Fine. Probably left the meeting. Didn't tell him nothing. Like he said, he didn't say anything. But he knew at that moment, I'm going to get rid of your ass for that. 2 or 3 weeks went on by. But instead of, again, it's what I was talking about with Barcelona and why it's unique with this, because they're kind of shiesty while they go and use the papers and try to talk to players individually, try to split them up and try to put this all out on Front Street to force somebody out. Because he said they launched a media campaign against me. And what's worse and more disappointing is Alejandro dedicated himself to talking to footballers such as Sergio Roberto, Araujo, Pedri, and Rafinha and told them that I wanted to sell them. That is wild, bro. Imagine Pedri's reaction to, what the Xavi wants to sell me. Something seems, if I was Pedri, Something seems off. Why are you coming up to me and telling me that? How does this benefit you? That's just how I think when something like that occurs. Because it's like, why are you telling me this? And you told Rafinha and you told Ronald Araujo, you obviously know by us having this information, we wouldn't be happy about it. And you specifically said that Xavi is the one who wants to sell us. So you're now trying to have us resent Xavi. And I'm pretty sure these were the players, at least for the most part, with Pedri, Ronald Araujo, and Sergio Roberto, who probably idolized and adored Xavi. Rafinha, I have mixed emotions on how he probably felt about Xavi because I do remember he used to get subbed out all the time in the 60th minute. He fucking hated that. I remember his reaction. When he wouldn't play out right, he felt out of position. I don't know if he will later thank Xavi for that because now he turned into arguably the best left winger in the world, or he, in his mind, was like, I still would prefer to be in my ideal position, which is right wing. I don't know, but there's a reason why I believe he went to these specific players. That's bogus as hell that he did that, though. That's crazy. He said there's always been talk of a list of several casualties signed by you. He said, and that still hurts because it's not true. We made a plan because we were very constrained by fair play regulations, and we only discussed making one sale. In fact, we planned it with Jordi and Mateo. We were only letting go of one player. Now he asked him which player, and he says, I prefer not to say it out of respect for that player. I didn't tell him at the time, and they didn't even give me time to tell him. I remember those 2 or 3 weeks went by without him answering my calls or messages. I trusted Laporta, and Alejandro was my friend, but he's the one who kicked me out of the club. Damn, so he won't say the player. I want to know who y'all think the player was that he was referring to. If I had to guess, I think the player he was referring to would be Rafinha. But it makes no sense to say that now. Obviously, Rafinha is a respected player in the club. He's a captain. He's achieved a lot. He's won a lot. So it makes no sense to really bring that up. At least Xavi had the decency to not throw any player under the bus. I could respect that. But it says that I didn't tell him at the time, and they didn't even give me time to tell him. I remember those 2 or 3 weeks went by without him answering my calls or messages. So Xavi only wanted to get rid of one player. He was probably going to prep to get ready to tell that player, hey, we got to make a sacrifice due to fair play, and we can generate the most money by selling you. But instead of even having an opportunity to do that, they went ahead and told the player, and it had to be one of them. It has to be one of these 4 players. Because he said, they didn't give me time to tell him, and over those 2 or 3 weeks, he didn't answer his phone calls or his messages. It has to be one. I'm telling you, bro, it had to be Rafinha, low-key. It had to be Rafinha. I don't think Sergi would just completely disregard and not answer his phone calls. I think he would try to talk to Xavi, and I believe later on in the interview he mentions that. But I don't believe it's Sergi. Pedri is too much of a Barcelona fan for him to just treat Xavi like that by airing him for 2 or 3 weeks, not answering the phone, not responding to text. But I don't think it's them two. So I'm going to cancel them two out. It's either Ronald Araujo or it's Rafinha. Now, Ronald Araujo, to me, had his best season in his career at Barcelona when Xavi was there. So I think if he was told that you were going to be sold, it would be shocking to him. Because he's like, he's not a La Masia product. He played at Barca B, but he's been here for a while. He came up. He's also a captain, and he was essential. Remember, Xavi had the idea of putting Ronald Araujo at right back, and at one point in time, he was called the Vinny Stopper. So I don't see it being Ronald Araujo. Therefore, it leaves it down to Rafinha. It has to be Rafinha, bro. Vito, that's a good point, bro. Vito Roque could be the other player. But I'm but when he says he don't want to mention it now, what would be the harm of mentioning? Yeah, I wanted to sell Vitor Roque. And on top of that, didn't he just sign Victor? We just signed Vitor Roque. I hate that this page keeps refreshing, bro. Didn't he? We just signed him, so I won't dismiss the Vitor Roque because that is a good shout. That is a good shout. But if you ask me, I really do believe it was Rafinha, Loki. I do. So that he wouldn't, he wouldn't say which player, but he said the player wouldn't respond to him, and that Laporta Alejandro was his friend, but they backdoored him and saying that he was the one Alejandro that kicked him out of the club. He is hurt. People need to understand. This is my story. In fact, there was a moment when Sergio Roberto, who was my friend and was a captain, it came up to me and said, Xavi, do you really see this is what I was just talking about? Xavi, do you really not want me to continue? And I told him that it was the complete opposite and that they were crucifying me precisely for defending his renewal. Now I ain't gonna lie, that was one player. Xavi, I was behind you for a good part of this interview. I ain't gonna lie, you wanting to bring back Sergio Roberto was kind of crazy. Like respect to Sergio Roberto and what he's done for the club, another La Masia product. I believe he was a captain. We know what he's won over his career and the big goals and the contributions he's had. I can go on and on and on. But I can say that I speak for most Barcelona fans because I remember seeing it in the social media when they were talking about renewing. Because it wasn't all just yes, we're going to sell Sergio Roberto. He's gone. No, there were times that they were talking about we were going to extend Sergio Roberto at least for one more year. And I remember the reaction online was mostly negative. People kind of wanted to move on from Sergio Roberto, and though he was useful, especially the year we won La Liga, he was he could play multiple roles. We already know that, but this is one I can't really back. But it is still bogus that they would tell him that hey, Xavi, your friend, the player you played with for years, under as a player, as a teammate, and as a player under his manager, he the one who want to get rid of you. That's why Sergi was like, nah, that don't seem right. Let me go to Xavi directly. I just don't know. I think that's interesting that that he would say that it was Mr. Alejandro specifically that was spreading this idea to several players. He seems convinced that it was him. So he said, he asked them, did they believe him? He said, I think so. I've always been upfront. I did it with PK and a teammate for years, and with Jordi Alba, my friend. I told him that it was time to leave. Why wouldn't I do it with others? I'm a football person. The locker room codes are clear. Otherwise, you lose the locker room. But Alejandro dedicated himself to sabotaging that narrative, and he's still at it today, which is why I'm doing this interview. Wow. He's claiming that Alejandro is still doing it today, and this is the reason why he's doing this interview. Is that the hardest thing for him to deal with? I've been holding back, but the president is saying that I wanted 10 casualties, and that's not true. Are you speaking out of resentment? That's a good question to ask. Absolutely not. I don't know how much I believe that. You probably got a little resentment. But he says absolutely not. There are many other things that truly hurt me, but I'm not speaking out of resentment. I'm speaking from a place of justice, and I want it to be known that things at Barca aren't working well. I've experienced it firsthand, and this is my message to everyone. I respect the players, Hansi, and the club, but I'm speaking out for my own protection. The players can't talk about me. Everything is very tense. The interview could have an impact on the elections. He could be accused of being an opportunistic. And Xavi says, what I want is for the members to understand that this is happening within Barca. And honestly, the club needs a complete overhaul, a change in structure, professionalism. For me, it's crystal clear, and people need to hear it from me. He can't depend on people who, no, he said we can't depend on people who aren't honest. Hansi Flick is very loyal to Laporta and praises him highly. I don't want to talk about what's happening now because I'm not involved. I'll just say that I wasn't treated well, just like Coleman wasn't treated well back then. I mean, look, Laporta got a nasty record with his 2 out of his 3 managers. I will say this because his treatment to Laporta really wasn't the best, but I think that got looked over because he's not liked around the club like how Xavi was. And when Xavi got that treatment, more people started to be aware. But once Hansi came in and we started winning, people didn't hang on to that as long as probably a lot of people expected, just because we started winning. Now, if we would have came out and it would have been a slow start and we were losing and all this other stuff, then maybe we can go back and people probably would have emphasized Xavi's exit a lot more. But because Hansi came in and started winning immediately, I think more people just kind of got over it a bit quick. But he got a point. Coleman wasn't really treated right with how Laporta handle his exit, and same with Xavi. He's right about that, but you gotta understand who you're dealing with. You're dealing with a lawyer and a presidential candidate. Who I mean, he's been a president before. He's actually been a president twice, and he's running for another term. When you're dealing with these kind of people, man, they know how to get what they want, even if it's not direct. They're going to move pieces around. They're going to say this to this crowd. They're going to say that to that crowd. But at the end of the day, they have an idea of what they want. They surround themselves with smarter people to help get them to their decisions. And then they start executing. You may not like how it went down, but at the end of the day, can you say his decisions have been wrong? Firstly, by getting rid of Ronald Koeman to get Xavi, that was the right decision. Getting rid of Xavi to bring in Hansi Flick, though it was harsh on how it went down, the decision at the end of the day was correct. Like I'm just being honest. Like I think, like I said, it was messed up on how it went down. You don't have to go about lying and smearing somebody's name in a campaign, because at the end of the day, this is still a Barca legend, a former captain, a former La Masia product who's won everything with the club. We should have more respect for him out of that. So, but like I said, I don't think Xavi is wrong. Period. That's just my opinion. And he says, "What do you think of Deco?" I respect him, but Deco is tied down by Echeverria, who is the one who really decides. He's saying he really got a lot of pull, man. Are you talking to Leo Messi? Yes, I have a good relationship with Leo. Are they discussing the elections? These are private conversations, and since I'm Leo and I know the repercussions that they have, I prefer not to say anything about them. But well, I imagine you all know what he thinks, right? Which, if anything, he's probably going to side with Xavi on his opinion on this. All right, bro. I appreciate you for stopping by, Marvel. But he was like, these are private conversations, but we already know how he thinks, right? And obviously, I think we all know how he thinks, because Laporta, he did go on a while about how he was trying to bring Leo back, but didn't really follow up. He goes on to say, Could he have returned to Barca with you as a coach? The president isn't telling the truth there either. Leo was already signed. In January 2023, after winning the World Cup, we got in touch and he told me that he was keen to come back. And I saw it that way. We talked until March, and I told him, well, when you give me the okay, I'll tell the president, because I see it as a good fit for him from a footballing perspective. So the president started negotiating a contract with Leo's father, and we had the green light from La Liga, but it's the president who's throwing everything back. That's interesting, because there was a point of time where it did feel like La Liga was the reason on why we couldn't get Leo Messi back. But he's saying that we got the green light from La Liga. He was already in talks. We had him signed. Everything was good to go. It was Laporta who pulled it back. So he asked him, did he explain why? Laporta told me point blank that if Leo come back, came back, he was going to wage war against him and that he couldn't allow it. And then suddenly, Leo stopped answering my calls because he'd been told on the other end that it couldn't be done. So I called his father and said, "This can't be, Jorge." And he said, "Talk to the president." And I insisted that we've been talking with Messi for 5 months, and it was a done deal. There were no doubts about the footballing aspect, and financially, we were going to the Montjuic, and we were going to do a last dance like Jordan's. Everything was ready. You gave your signature to Victor Font. If he wins, will you return to Barca? I now think I would never return to Barca. I've already completed my time as a player and as a coach, and from here on out, my interest is in telling the truth. And Leo isn't coming back to Barca because the president doesn't want him, not because of La Liga or because of Jorge Messi is asking for more money. That's all a lie. It's the president and his people who are telling him no, that he can't afford it, and that he has all the power, and that Messi will mismanage that power. Did it take him a while to speak to Messi again? Yes, because he thought I was involved in the scheme. It affected my relationship with Messi. But now it's good again. Will Messi return? I was dying for Messi to return or for Messi to come back. And even now, I still think he would help the team score goals, provide those final passes without a doubt. He's going to play in the World Cup. Messi would triumph again at the Camp Nou. And it was his wish and mine. He knows it. He knows it now. But there was a time when I couldn't get in touch with him. It was a shame, but it's the fault of those who are there now. Have you spoken to Laporta again since your dismissal? No. And that's it. When was the last time you spoke? He said, first, I remember after those 2 or 3 weeks where he didn't answer my messages, we saw each other after the match against Rayo. The supporters section was chanting Xavi'S, Laporta no. It was an awkward, very tense situation. And then what? Days later, he shows up and I say to him, well, I guess I'm out on the street, but tell me why. And he replies that I don't believe in the squad. It was a lie. I told him, look, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to leave Barca shooting people. The Barca of isms doesn't end with this interview. They make you believe that Barca is a, quote, you either with me or against me, unquote, situation. That slogan of against all odds, quote unquote. That's how they are. It is their modus operandi, and it's a shame for Barcelona fans. I'm not against Laporta. I'm for Barca. We need healthy people. We've had 20 years of ism. Cruyffism, Laportaism, Sandrism, Nunism. Everyone has to be a part of Barca. How do you feel after having spoken? I feel so much calmer now. I'm out because I stood up to Alejandro Echeverria. So look, man, I'm gonna say this, man, because that was a lot to unpack. Like I said, man, if you didn't catch this live stream live, definitely comment down below what you guys thought, man, because it really sounds like Xavi just had to get all this out. It's something that he's been holding, and for him, what a better time to do it than the week before the elections. Because obviously this is a smear campaign against Laporta and his partner in Alejandro Echeverria. This is the first time I've ever heard of this person. I'm curious to know if he's going to speak. They did say that John Laporta is going to come out tomorrow and respond to this interview, and I will be doing a reaction to that as well when I have some time. But, man, this is crazy. This is crazy. Like I said, man, throughout the stream, I understand why Xavi said all this, man. He wants to hurt Laporta's chances of becoming president again. And due to his firsthand experience with how the club likes to treat its managers and staff behind the back door, they're saying one thing and doing another. I get why he's frustrated, but at the end of the day, right or wrong, Laporta's decisions have been correct. He definitely should go about him a different way. He should. Don't tell a manager you want to keep him and then run a campaign on why he should be out, and then 3 weeks later, while not answering his texts, his phone calls, and still decide to kick him out after he already decided he wanted to leave. You begged him to stay. He stayed, and then you run that campaign after him. It's nasty work on that front. I agree with him on that. But at the end of the day, and like I said before, Laporta was right in both decisions. He was right in getting rid of Coleman, and he was right in getting rid of Xavi, because every single time he got rid of somebody, the replacement was a little bit better. And at the end of the day, it's about what's being produced on that pitch. And as long as that team is improving, whether it's through the academy or through the transfer window, whatever we restricted with, it doesn't matter. As long as that team on the pitch continues to improve, then that's really all that matters, man. That's just a fact. So, like I said, man, this is a long live stream. I appreciate y'all for watching. For those who tuned in, like the stream if you haven't already. And comment down below your thoughts on this, man. Like I said, I'm sorry I didn't make this more shorter. That's why I didn't want to do a YouTube video, because I knew I had a lot to read and I wanted to react to a lot of the things that were being said. But like I said, man, if you haven't subscribed already, please do like the live stream and comment down below if you are catching this after the live stream or your thoughts on this, man. And I appreciate all the support and love y'all been showing. And I'm going to go ahead and, yeah, I'm pretty sure y'all going to see me tomorrow, because I've already seen that Laporta will have something to say in response to Xavi's interview. And I'm sure Laporta is going to try to spin some shit. He's going to do his presidential kind of thing, especially right before the elections. But we're going to be there to talk about that and break that down, man. But I'm going to go ahead and get up out of here, and I appreciate y'all for watching, man. So until then.